Imagine over 2,000 years ago, in a small town called Bethlehem, a story began that would change the world forever. This is the story of Jesus, a man whose life, teachings, and sacrifice have shaped history and inspired billions. It wasn't in a grand palace, but in a humble manger that Jesus was born to Mary and Joseph. Angels announced his birth to shepherds. A celestial sign guided wise men from the east, all pointing to this child as someone extraordinary, a promised king. As a boy, Jesus grew up in Nazareth, learning the trade of his father, Joseph, a carpenter. Even then, there were glimpses of his profound wisdom. At just 12 years old, he was found in the temple in Jerusalem, astonishing the learned teachers with his understanding. But for the most part, he lived a quiet, ordinary life, preparing for the extraordinary mission that lay ahead. Around the age of 30, Jesus' public ministry began. He was baptized in the Jordan River by his cousin, John the Baptist, and it was then that a voice from heaven declared, "This is my beloved Son, with whom I am well pleased." From that moment, Jesus traveled throughout the regions of Galilee and Judea, not as a political revolutionary, but as a teacher and healer. He gathered a group of 12 followers, his disciples, who walked with him, learned from him, and witnessed his incredible works. Jesus' teachings were radical for his time. He spoke in parables, simple stories with deep spiritual meanings that everyone could understand. He taught about a kingdom not of this world, a kingdom of love, forgiveness, and justice. The core of his message was simple, yet profound. Love God with all your heart and love your neighbor as yourself. This wasn't just a suggestion. It was the foundation of a new way of life. He reached out to the marginalized, the poor, the sick, and the outcast, showing them a dignity and love they had rarely known. His words were matched by his actions. Jesus performed miracles that defied explanation. He healed the blind, enabled the lame to walk, cleansed lepers, and even raised the dead. He famously turned water into wine at a wedding and fed thousands of people with just a few loaves of bread and fish. These weren't just displays of power. They were signs pointing to a deeper reality that with God all things are possible and that compassion is God's language. But his growing popularity and challenging message created tension. The religious and political leaders of the day saw him as a threat to their authority and the established order. They plotted against him, looking for a way to silence him. The climax of this conflict came during the Passover festival in Jerusalem. Jesus shared a final meal with his disciples, what we now call the Last Supper, where he spoke of a new covenant sealed by his sacrifice. Later that night, betrayed by one of his own disciples, Judas, Jesus was arrested in the Garden of Gethsemane. He faced a series of unjust trials, was mocked, beaten, and condemned to the cruelest form of Roman execution, crucifixion. He was forced to carry his own cross to a hill called Golgotha, where he was nailed to it between two criminals. In his final hours, he showed immense grace, even asking God to forgive those who were executing him. With the words, "It is finished," he breathed his last. To his followers, it seemed like the ultimate tragedy. The hope he represented seemed to have died with him. His body was laid in a borrowed tomb, sealed with a massive stone. But the story doesn't end in that dark tomb. 3 days later, something unbelievable happened. The tomb was found empty. Jesus had risen from the dead. He appeared to his disciples, not as a ghost, but alive, proving that his claims were true and that death itself had been conquered. For 40 days, the resurrected Jesus appeared to many, comforting his followers and giving them a final mission to share his message of hope and salvation with the entire world. Then, he ascended into heaven, promising that his spirit would be with them always. This event, the resurrection, is the cornerstone of Christian faith. It transformed a small group of frightened disciples into bold apostles who fearlessly spread the message of Jesus, a message that has echoed through centuries and continues to change lives today. From a humble birth to a history-altering resurrection, the life of Jesus remains one of the most powerful and influential stories ever told. Thanks for watching.